Good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday, January 21st, and I'm going to call our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Moving on to item 1.2, our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabeg traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? I note that none were received prior to this evening's meeting. There is no closed session tonight. Moving on to item number 4, announcements, updates, and recognitions. The first is the potential new power generation opportunity in Port Hope. On Wednesday, January 15th, I joined the Ontario Minister of Energy and Electrification, Stephen Lecce, and the Minister of Labour, Immigration Training and Skills Development, David Piccini, along with the Council, to announce that the Ontario government has directed Ontario Power Generation to explore opportunities for new nuclear energy generation at the Wesleyville site. This decision follows unanimous support from our council in December to begin the process of discussion with OPG and community engagement. The Wesleyville site, maintained by Ontario Power Generation OPG, is strategically located near existing transmission lines, roadways, and railway infrastructure. Already zoned for electricity generation, the site is well positioned to support a significant new nuclear facility. Preliminary assessments by OPG suggest that the site could accommodate up to 10,000 megawatts of new nuclear generation, enough to power approximately 10 million homes. We will continue to update and inform the community of this project, of the discussions, of the community engagement. There was also some preliminary numbers shared with us at the press release that such a site could generate up to almost 11,000 new jobs in the area, including approximately 1,700 in Port Hope, add an additional $10 million to our tax base, and have a significant, someone's clapping in the back, no clapping, no clapping, and add to the base of economic development in the area, as we might see some other co-industries join in the area. But again, I want to emphasize these are first preliminary steps. We have a process to go through for further discussion, a memorandum of understanding, and a robust community engagement process. Moving on to the second item, which is exploring the future of artificial intelligence. For those of you who are at our last meeting, Councillor Attridge provided an update about 2 events that are going to be happening in our community that are going to bring world-class expertise and thought leadership on artificial intelligence. These events are really perfect for anybody who would like to learn more about AI. So we have a public event at the Capitol Theatre on Thursday, February the 6th, starting at 6:30 p.m., which is entitled What is AI? It's going to be a TED Talk followed by a fireside chat of a number of different experts. It is open to the public. Students are free, and it's an opportunity to come and learn and ask questions that you might have about AI and what it means to all of our lives. The following day, on February the 7th, we have a workshop that is geared towards those who are working in municipal and local government, whether they're staff or whether they're counselors. There'll be 15 guest speakers from across Canada and the United States, and 8 innovative case examples of AI applications in different policy areas, from community engagement to improving customer service to being aware of how to detect a wildfire, through to anticipating and responding to homelessness, improving infrastructure and procurement. So really across all the different areas that anybody would work in local municipal government. So we invite you to both of those events, and the Capitol Theatre is selling tickets to both those events through an Eventbrite system. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Councillor Attridge. And more details are also available on our website at porthope.ca. Moving on to the Walton Street reconstruction phase 3. I'm pleased to share an update on Walton Street reconstruction. The tender process is now open to hire a contractor for phase 3 of this vital infrastructure upgrade. This final phase will focus on the area between Pine Street and Kevin Street, with construction scheduled to begin in the spring. Major work is expected to wrap up by November of 2025. As part of this process, a pre-construction public information meeting will be held after the tender is awarded. At this meeting, we'll share details on construction staging, traffic detours, and schedules to help everyone to prepare for the work ahead. We did a similar thing when we started the former phase of Walton Street. So stay tuned on our municipal channels. Meeting details will be shared widely once they're confirmed. Moving on to the last update, which is 65 Ward Street. In December 2024, the court dismissed Southbridge's motion for leave to appeal on jurisdictional grounds and awarded $5,000 in legal costs to the municipality. Our legal team is now reviewing the next steps. If no further appeals are filed, the Ontario Land Tribunal hearing, currently paused, will resume, and we will, of course, share updates as new information becomes available. Thank you for your continued patience and trust as we navigate the process. Now, does anybody have any updates that they would like to share at the table? I will just note that I just came back from the Roma conference in Toronto, and my participation there was funded by Northumberland County. And when we meet again, I'll be able to provide a more fulsome update on some of the discussions that happened in the delegations that I participated in, and again, wearing my county hat for that. But it was a much more somber event this year, I think, because of some of the events that people were focusing on in the United States. Moving on to item number 5, delegations. It is now time for delegations, and we have one delegation on the agenda tonight. 5.1, Chief of Police Tim Farquharson, Port Hope Police Services, regarding George Hamilton Public School property, 3200 County Road 10. And I now welcome you, Chief, and just please push the right.
Thanks, Your Worship. And council, staff, thanks. I know it's a cold one tonight. I was saying to somebody, I've got 41 animals to put to bed in a few hours, so don't worry, Mr. Chair, it won't be long. Councillor Anders, so I just want to quickly go through this because I know there's been some possible miscommunication, and if that's on my part, I apologize. We definitely want to be celebrating the good news you said in regards to OPG and the possibilities that are there for this community, which are generational, and it's pretty incredible. It'll tie into this as well. I started here March 1st, 2023. And when I'd come here, Chad Heenan was one of the Constable Heenans here with me because he's the use of force expert and our master trainer, along with Jay and Joel, our Coburg friends, because we trained together. So I'd started, and I'd also worked with Chad for many years in Peterborough as well. So he's well aware of the challenges we've had around training facilities. It's been going on for my 38 years. Used numerous schools, abandoned buildings all over Peterborough, Cavan. Where's the furthest we went? Baileyborough. And I know that for this team, before I was here, they were training at Durham, and that opportunity ran out. We had checked with Peterborough at that time, and there was no opportunity. Since then, there's been a lot of discussions, but we can get into that. The reason that George Hamilton School was just at the beginning for me was fantastic is because it was so close. We're looking at a kilometer down from the station, so it's definitely handy. If you look at a lot of the training with rapid deployment, the IRD training, use of force, you need the gymnasium, you need scenarios to save time and money and efficiencies, because we only get each block of officers. So you picture a platoon of officers that are going to come in and do that complete training. So they have to do that together for efficiencies. If you split that up, it's challenging. I think we're at between 45 and 50 days, Chad, of training. So you have to think of 50 days that we take our special constables there, our auxiliary from both police services, and our officers. So it's a lot of days. And then I know that Chad, Joel, and Jay are in the building quite often. You'll see the cruisers there, which I know that the neighbors appreciate. So what do we need? I talked to, I know on Lansdowne Street West, which we've been in and we've done a tour of ourselves in Coburg to see about the possibilities of training. His vision is a training facility at that. They have tens of thousands of square feet. Peterborough's not far for us to go to. Lumax, I spoke to Trent Gervais, who I've known for over 30 years, in the last few weeks about possibilities in an emergency situation if we could train there in the hangars and that type of thing. That's a possibility as well. Chief Rod is in Belleville now, who I worked with for 30 years. He's looking at opportunities for us. Because we're never sure, and I'm used to this. It's my job. It's not your job. I know my role, and this is above me. So in regards to any conversations I've had with anyone, it wasn't to lobby, because I'm not a lobbyist or activist, but I will be passionate about the training and the importance of it, because it's legislated, it's mandated, was under 399 of the regulations in the previous act, and we now have a new act, right? The CSPA 2019. All the regulations are still there. In fact, there's going to be more mental health training put on the officers, more de-escalation technique, more VR. When we talk about AI, the training that's going into mental health is going to be huge. Our special constables are going to need to be retrained. They're going to have to take a 3-week course that's going to be developed. So there's many, many things that are going on. It's frustrating. There was a deputy chief when I started who said there'll be a day when you need 2 police services, one that's always in training and one that's out there. And you know what? At the time, that was ridiculous. That was 37 years ago, 38 years ago. We're getting there with all the expectations in policing. So that's a challenge we have. So we're naturally passionate about when we have a facility, a building that's just so handy, we are. But again, if council decides at the end of the day that it is time to move on from that building for whatever reasons, not my thing, not my role, and I'll stay in my own lane, and myself and Chief Vandergraaf will be responsible for finding another building. And as I said, we're looking at several opportunities. We don't even know where OPG is going to be and what possible training outcomes are there. Also, we do know that this council is into relationships. It's very important to them. If the building is sold, we would hope that it's a possibility, and I know we've talked to get an extension. So I would advocate for as long as we can if the building's sold. If that's 6 months, great. 12 months would be fantastic. 18 months would be perfect. Would give us lots of time. So that's kind of where we are. It's mandated training. We have to do it. I could talk forever about the training and everything that goes into it, and so could Chad, but we kind of want to answer questions while we're here because we know we have to make a decision tonight too. So our part of it, anything we can answer, we'd like to.
Thank you, Chief Tim. Really appreciate that. So I'm going to turn it over to questions from council. Yes, Councillor Mink.
Thank you, and thank you for that. So I have a few questions, and I have them written down here. So you mentioned that there are plans for new training facilities in the region. Um, I've heard that some of these facilities might include some very interesting new concepts, such as virtual training and that type of training. I don't know if that's true or not. So if you could clarify that. And those types of training, do they replace the hands-on training that's happening right now, or would there still be a need for both trainings?
Sure. So the first part of the question I'll answer, and I'll turn the other piece over to PC Heenan. That's his world. So the training piece of it in Peterborough, they're looking at a full facility. It would be a room probably 3 times the size of this, with partitions that can go on wheels and can be moved. So you can have several incidents. I'll give you an example. You'll have a person in a tent armed with a knife. In the next room, you're going to have a domestic situation going on. Next could be something that's going to turn into a foot pursuit. All these things are going on at the same time, mainly for efficiencies because of the length of training. They're looking at a full width VR facility. Fleming has that. Trent has that. The problem with the university and the college is the times that they gave us are like the summer, and that's not when we train. We train in spring and fall. Is our 2 training facilities. Did you want to speak on any of the training?
All right, Council. A little bit of my element, but happy to be here. So yeah, virtual reality definitely does have its place in training, and I'm not going to deny that because it's something I look forward to in the future. That being said, policing is a very dynamic situation, and we do have, like myself today, I played a role player in training myself, and I had to move room to room to room to have the officers respond down the hallway of the school. That can't be replaced with virtual reality. So there is certain scenarios that are maybe dealing with somebody in crisis one-on-one, but when you get into a dynamic situation of maybe you have to breach a door, maybe you have to enter through a wall, go around the outside of a school to take out an individual from the window, that's the type of dynamic situations that officers are exposed to, and that's what we train to. So that's just difficult being in a very static state because it has to go dynamic, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
No problem.
Do you want to, how about a couple of questions and we'll circulate, make sure everybody has a chance.
I have 2 more for you then. So you mentioned that more facilities are coming, but we also know that we also have growth that's happening. As you mentioned, more types of training are coming, but our community is growing. The urban sprawl is coming this way. So knowing we have facilities coming, but knowing that we have growth coming, what is the plan potentially to get ahead of that? Do you see ever getting ahead of that and always searching for somewhere to go?
So for 38 years, I've searched for a place to go. I've been part of an organization that was searching for a place to go, never had it. They probably will have it now. Our end goal is to find that permanent facility. That would be fantastic. I mean, we speak to our fire chief, and they're looking at an expansion possibly at the police station. We're looking at those plans. That includes a large training room. As discussions would go, they would be able to move the fire. Worst case scenario, the engines would be moved out, fire department vehicles. We would use that as training. We would get the partitions and make do. Like, we've been ingenious enough to find ways to make things work. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario is a regional training facility that's being discussed now. Another great opportunity would be if Peterborough. I believe it's January 2026. That's a year from now. If it was a year and a half from now, we could still that could still be a partnership. So we're still looking at partnerships, and we don't know where Durham will be at that time. Belleville's still seeing what they can do for us, but again, the closer, the better.
Thank you. And my last question is one that it's not a commitment by you, it's more of a hypothetical, but it's something that I feel I need to ask. And that is, would the police department be prepared to present a business plan outlining how the facility could be managed and funded as a training facility if we provided that opportunity to allow that facility to be exclusive for training?
Right. So I look at it this way: I would do whatever council asks. That's my role. So if council at the end of the day decided to ask me as chief to start working on a business case for that, we haven't done that at this point. To look at revenue opportunities, we haven't done that at this point. Could we do it? Obviously, we could pull that out. We put all chiefs out quite frequently to find out and gauge interest. It would take some time to do that, but anything's possible, right? That in regards to request, of course, I would do that. I would not say no.
Councillor Less.
Yeah, before I'd even want to entertain that from a board perspective, I'd want to know what the long-term expectations of OPGs are going to be, how close they want a training facility to what they're going to be building. So I think it's way too premature to take up the time of the chief and the board and the officers to do this type of study right now. There's too many unknowns. We're existing as is. We have the ability as vendors of the Hamilton School to dictate somewhat the terms of the agreement. And if we want 12 months or 18 months, we'll negotiate that up front. So we have time to work with.
And Councillor, I would just add on to that because I look at Lumax and their management. You'd be having to hire Lumax to be managers because you're talking about schedules, and we would have to have priority, which is frustrating to other people because we're going to be saying these are exact days that we need, these are the months that we need, and it would be really challenging. And it couldn't be the police that managed all that. You'd have to hire a management firm, and I know Lumax because I've worked with them. That's what they do, and it's expensive.
So I just want to pick up on a couple of strains of what you were mentioning, Chief, for purposes of clarity. You said that there could be opportunities in the future to combine efforts with fire and potentially with OPG to come together and create some kind of training center that would kill three birds basically with one stone. That is something that is a possibility for the future. It speaks to some of Councillor Less's observations as well. But even if we weren't looking into the future and all the players that could be involved in a training facility, you had mentioned that 12 to 18 months would give you a comfortable cushion in terms of being able to transition or plan for something additional.
Yeah, and it's a good point. When I was talking to Candace, September 2024, I had said to her 6 months, but after speaking to, I should have waited and spoke to our experts, subject matter experts. We'd be looking more at 12 to 18 months for us to be able to find another location would be optimal. Could we do it if it was 6 months? We could, but I'd be putting our team under a lot of stress if I told them 6 months. So 12 to 18 months would be much more helpful for us.
Just going back to the first part of my question around joining forces to think about a state-of-the-art training center.
I think you would have, I'm not even looking at him right now, but that's exactly what he'd be doing. If he could, he'd be clapping because that's exactly what our training officers want. The constant perpetual moving equipment around. When you see that gym full of equipment, it's days of work just getting everything set up. So I'll save it. That would be optimal, having a combined training facility for sure.
Councillor Todd.
Thanks, Chief. In the document you submitted under the requirements, you've noted here that OPG is $750 a day. Is that a typical rate for using these kinds of facilities?
I'll let Chad speak about that part of it because I didn't get the costing. I didn't go that far.
All right. Yeah. So OPG they do the RCMP. They use the training facility at OPG. It can fluctuate in range anywhere from, I think they're pretty helpful with some services. I haven't really got too far into that with them, but they said anywhere between, 500 to 750 a day is kind of the approximate cost. If we explored that avenue, if we had to, I'd be able to get you guys a more accurate answer in the future. Just at this time, I don't have the actual concrete price, but I do know it is quite costly, and it's a very confined and small space. So, yeah,
and just
that's
as
at Wesleyville. So that could be terminated once the plant starts. So,
and just as a follow-up, then prior to using George Hamilton, we were using other facilities. What were we paying when we were doing that? Do you recall?
So before we were using the arena in Coburg, and I think that was kind of as cost for us. They kind of absorbed that cost because we do joint training. And now that they're at our school, we're kind of returning that favor back to them. The joint training that we do between Coburg and Porter is truly irreplaceable because if we're ever in a tragic situation, they're going to be the first ones responding. So it's kind of been a give and take for a little bit. So
Okay, thank you very much.
you're welcome.
Just on that, Councillor Atridge, we, speaking to Peterborough, we're in a Section 14 agreement with them under the CSPA right now. So we would be looking at very limited costs if we were to go to Peterborough, for instance, because we have an officer helping with their computer forensic analyst program, which also helps Port Hope and Coburg. And we're looking at all these types of relationships that don't cost either municipality money.
And I have just one quick follow-up. If you were to be training, for example, in Peterborough as one option, because I know you've talked about a number of different options that might be in the table for the future, would there ever be any concern for the community around officers not being present and the safety and the security of our community?
Right. So when you're doing the training, it's one block. So it would be one platoon that would be gone from Port Hope that would be in Peterborough. The officers would you'd still have the same deployment on the road. And we have a relationship with the OPP, an excellent relationship, and basically a partnership with Coburg in regards to calls. They can hear our calls, we can hear their calls. In emergency, we'd help each other out. So we'd be prepared for that. So you'd be losing one platoon. If you had a major incident, those officers would come back from Peterborough, and you're looking at about a 38-minute drive, right, from the west end of Peterborough to here. So the community would be safe, to answer your question.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Mink.
Thank you. So just to follow up with a comment that Constable Heenan said, and then as well as this conversation, is that you had said that working together in your training with Coburg and Port Hope is very important because you will respond to calls together. So if we no longer had George Hamilton as a facility, would that jeopardize working together where you may not be able to coordinate both leaving to another community at the same time? And going along with that, what benefit potentially could there be offering our neighbors the mutual aid use of George Hamilton as a place where now you can, you said just between Coburg and Port Hope, you've shared that, but is there opportunity to have Durham Region, Peterborough, whoever come down and use this facility and offer that mutual aid relationship?
I don't even know how I hit that. I didn't think I was touching it. Does it just go off after time? Okay, so we would have to reach out to those police services. Peterborough's on their own journey to get their own facility. Each police service wants its own facility. Consider us with Coburg, though, to your point, it's a great point. Yes, Coburg and Port Hope would like their own facility, however that looks. So that part of it, Durham already has their program going. Their problem is they just don't have the capacity to take more. And that was the problem with Peterborough before. But again, they're on the other piece. And then in regards to the safety, you were saying, in regards to Coburg and Port Hope working together.
Yeah,
There was
just having that relationship that right now, because you can stay local, you can have that training together, and potentially if you have to leave the community for the training,
Sure.
could that jeopardize that relationship of working together, or do you foresee that you could still both?
It's a great question because I would see that people would think that, but we're attached to, I hate to use the euphemism, we're attached to the hip. We are. That happened before I was here. And I had a long-standing relationship previously with the chief of Coburg and the deputy. So we are not planning on anything but staying together. And if that meant that we had to go to Coburg for a location, they were looking at 2 different locations. Better not to mention those names. Those fell through. So we're always looking, but we're going to be together. So us in Coburg or us in Port Hope, it's a little further drive for us, right? It's a 12-minute drive, but it's not. That's not impossible. Either would Wesleyville be if it wasn't cost prohibitive for us, as well as getting those exact dates. That's the biggest problem with us going somewhere else is we need those exact dates. They're very important.
Any other comments, questions from the table? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The recommended motion is to receive the delegation for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, second by Councillor Adam. All
Thanks.
in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to item number 6, public comment period. It is now time for public comment period as per our procedural bylaw. The purpose of the public comment period is for members of the public to provide comments on items that are on today's council agenda. If you have questions related to an item that is not on today's agenda, please wait until question period, which is later in the meeting. I request that you keep your comments brief and respectful. I also remind council members that no questions or comments can be directed to those providing public comments this evening. Please also ensure that you provide us with your name and contact details throughout the sign-in sheet that is near the door so that the staff may follow up if necessary. So at this point, we will start the public comment period. You can come forward, state your name, and press the purple button to speak. Do we have any members that would like to come forward and make a public comment? It's about 2 minutes.
Okay, John Bickle, welcome. Comments about George Hamilton School in light of what could possibly happen at Wesleyville. It would be an ideal multi-training union center where there could be multiple unions there. It could be a first aid center for Wesleyville during the construction phase, which is going to last 25, 30 years, which is, quite a length of time, which by that time, it would be up and running down there and they could have their own hospital or whatever. But like I say, there'll be numerous construction jobs, numerous trades where one combined giant union hall to take in several different unions and enough room for a training center. When we did our first when we did the fire master plan, Cameco came forward and said, if we put the fire hall at Welcome School, they would build a training center there. With the fire hall being moved into town, that went out the window. But Cameco, I'm sure, would come back on board to do training. Being a resident of Welcome, I've seen Cameco there training, fire department, Cobourg, Port Hope Police. So it is being used. And if the municipality wasn't charging for the last 2 years for these people using it, that's the fault of the municipality and the staff. Staff was directed 5 years ago to come up with economic things for that property. Instead, they spent all their time on a climate action plan, which is not going to do any good for Mr. Trump across the pond over there. It's all going to go out the window. So the time was wasted doing other things when staff should have been concentrating on economic activities for Ward 2, which was why the school was purchased to begin with. That's my comments.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bickle. Thank you. Any other public comments from the audience?
Yeah, I just want to comment on.
Sorry, your just introduction, name, address, same drill.
I'm sorry,
Your name and address for the record, please.
Ed White, Mill Street South, Port Hope. My comment is more or less on the future and why we're in a rush to sell this Welcome School property. There's so many uses that it could have. We used to have a business hub here that promoted new businesses, small businesses, and gave them a chance to start up. It gave them a place to call their own. It's a good amount of property. It seems to me that is going to be, as the town grows, it's going to be more central in Ward 2. Might help Ward 2 be a little happier being included, to have a nice office space, maybe, that kind of thing. And the only other thing I just want to remember is I can remember when Cobourg wanted to tear down Victoria Hall because it was costing too much money and it was too much upkeep and whatnot like that. So I'm looking to the future. Can you imagine if they
torn Victoria Hall down if they didn't think about, if people didn't get up and think about what was going on. I think you got a good amount of property there. You got $1 million from OPG now, so hopefully the pressure's off a little bit for next year, or this year, which was going to be a tough year, I get. So can we just back off a little bit and not, think about the future a little bit?
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ed. Any other further public comments from the audience on this? Okay. Moving on to item number 7, we do not have any correspondence this evening. Item number 8, consent agenda adoption of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would any members like to remove any of them for any separate discussion? Seeing none, then can I please get a mover and seconder to adopt the minutes as listed? Moved by Councillor Todd, second by Councillor Darrell, all in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 9, consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any items under this consent agenda for separate discussion? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to receive this item for information? Moved by Councillor Clare and seconded by Councillor Adam. Moving on to item number 10, items for consideration. 10.1, report CAO 0125, next steps, Ontario Power Generation, and
Madam Mayor, you just have to call the vote for the consent agenda on advisory.
sorry, can I get a mover and seconder for that?
The mover and seconder was Councillor Holloway Wadwani and Councillor Pearson.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Too much sitting in a conference in the last 3 days. Okay, moving on to item number 10. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Items for consideration. 10.1, report CAO 0125, next steps, Ontario Power Generation, and provincial announcement regarding Wesleyville lands. Does the CAO have anything further that you would like to add to this report before we consider it?
Thank you. No, I just wanted to reiterate that it's basically just information again to let council know where we're at in the process and the public as well. That again, we're just into negotiation and conversation. No decisions have been made. $1 million has been provided, making sure that that's available. So council's aware and the public are aware that we have that. And then the next steps in terms of moving forward with further discussion and a memorandum of understanding, at which point another report and that memorandum will come back to council.
Thank you. Any further questions for the CAO on the report? Okay, so the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 10.2, report CS 0225, reappointments to the Heritage Business Improvement Area Board of Directors. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I don't have anything further to add. I'm available to answer questions should you have them, but this is fairly administrative in nature. It follows the process that we have for the past many years since the bylaw was passed with respect to appointing directors to the HBIA. The directors are here for your consideration tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, so the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Welcome to the new members of the board, and we very much appreciate your volunteerism and your service to the community. Item 10.3, report ES 0225, remediation of 74 Queen Street municipal parking lot under the construction monitoring program. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
Good evening. Through you, Mayor. Nothing further to add to the report, just looking to have the site remediated in order to facilitate future planning for other sites downtown. As I stated in the report, there's no financial considerations. The costs are all fully reimbursable under the CMP program. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I read the report, but I'm drawing a blank. When this is completed, will we be getting another report on how it will be used as a parking lot? Or is that something?
Yes, there's no restoration plans as of yet, kind of to be determined at this point, but there will be a report coming with considerations and as to what it's going to return to, considering connectivity down to Center Pier, up to downtown, through Lent Lane, that kind of thing. So there will be another report, potentially some green space, some more wider boulevards, some planting, that sort of thing.
Any other questions or comments from around the table? The recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, second by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. Moving on to report 10.4 FS 0125 re 2025 interim levy bylaw. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
This is just an annual report. It's so routine. We wish we could just have standing direction instead of being required to have an annual bylaw. The only thing I do just want to remind, right, this isn't, we're not going to see any increase on the interim levy. This is just essentially half of what you were charged last year to provide interim funding until we get to the final tax levy. So there's no actual increase during this one unless there's been a change in property values.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? So the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that's passed unanimously. 10.5 report WE 0125 Remarsh Street infrastructure improvements. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
Yes, the Marsh Street infrastructure project was approved as part of the 2023 budget. It was for water main, sanitary sewer, and storm sewer improvements. The water main work was completed in 2023, while the design work was completed in 2024 for the storm sewer work. The storm sewer work design was completed, tender was issued, the tender closed significantly over budget. I'd like to thank Cameco for their significant investment in improving our waterfront. This project would not be able to move forward without their support.
Yes, and I just want to emphasize how much we appreciate Cameco's participation in being such a meaningful citizen in our community. So thank you for emphasizing that. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Less.
And these streets were named. Did we run out of names? We have Marsh Street, Marsh Road. I mean, Cross Street, you know. Yeah, I know it's not your fault.
Well, maybe we can call it Cameco Street after this. The recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Clare, seconded by Councillor Less. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 10.6, report CS 1524, re-declare former George Hamilton Public School surplus and authorize sale process. So this item was deferred from the council meeting of December 17th, 2024, and council directed staff to bring this report for council consideration following the consideration of the land inventory surplus study, which was presented at committee of the whole on January 7th, 2025. So I'll now open this matter up for discussion. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add? And what we'll do is we'll go around and make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak to the matter. Councillor Less?
Yeah, well, I originally voted not to sell the property, and that rationale was based on the needs of the police. But I think we can, whoever is entertaining, if anybody is entertaining buying this property, we are in a strong negotiation position as to timing, as to when it can be turned over. The intent from when we originally bought this was not to hold it as part of the municipal land bank, because we had no plans for it. We saw as a potentially good deal. It could potentially have been used for, the agricultural group, but none of that stuff has come to fruition. I don't know if it's saleable. I don't know what the intent of anybody would be to use that property, but unless we put it up for sale, we'll never know. And as to price, you never go in and say we want $1 million for a property, that is probably what we paid somewhat less for. So you go in with a reasonable number of expectation to attract buyers. And what it ends up at is a real guess. And if it doesn't end up to what we want, then we don't sell it.
Thank you, Councillor Less. Can I just want to ask a question about the proposed selling price. Director Gilmore, can you just speak to that for the matter of record, what the staff report included in terms of that potential price to go to market if it were to go to market?
Thank you. I'd be happy to. So the price indicated in the report and spelled out in the report is really the minimum that we would entertain in terms of presenting an offer to sale to council. So tonight we're looking at just surplusing the property. Council will have a subsequent decision in the future if you decide to move forward with respect to the sale of the property. The setting the minimum based on the appraised value just prevents staff from being in a position where we have to bring you an offer that is unrealistic or doesn't satisfy the objectives we're trying to achieve here. So the market price, the price this property would be listed at, should you choose to go forward, has not been determined. We'd be relying on the professional services of a realtor to make that determination and market the property accordingly.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Todd.
Thank you very much. My question actually is for Director Baxter. I hope I'm not putting you on the spot here, but should we hold on to this property? It was mentioned previously that there had to be a funding model behind it. Would you be able to maybe walk us through what that looks like?
Certainly. So I will note the report points out, right, it's anticipated at least $25,000 a year in holding. Probably double that when you consider the fact that we don't have that money sitting in the bank, what we would be earning otherwise. If council was to decide to hold on to the property, we need to fund the property. That right now works out to about 1.25 on the total tax levy, or to the typical residential homeowner, a little over $60. So that would be something if we were to decide, we're going to hold on to the property, certainly come 2026 budget, we would be needing to add that on top of it, because, we're already now needing to get into actively managing cash flow, right? We know our development charges, have not come in at the same rate that we have utilized them. We haven't been taking out long-term loans, so things are getting tighter and tighter from a cash flow perspective. We had to actively manage that this year end, and so we can't just take on over $500,000 projects and not actually raise the funds for them. So this this is really overdue in terms of coming up with the funding for it, and so we would need to we do need to have a way of funding it. Just merely saying we're going to hold on to it is not enough. We do need to actually fund this project.
All right, thanks very much. And I don't have any questions, but I would just make a comment simply because we have had, I think, lots of interest and comments made about, what could this property be? And I think one of the advantages of selling it is it then does open it up to what could it be? Someone can purchase it, someone can turn it into something creative and inventive. So people with the means would be able to do something great with it, I think, if it was given into the market.
I'm going to do something a little different and go to the end of the table this way. We're going to, I did, yes. So, Councillor Gerald, I think you were saying that somebody stole your question. Did you have another question or a follow-up to that maybe then?
More of a comment, I guess. We've heard tonight from our police force, there obviously is a need for training for the next 18 months, roughly. That's if things move exactly according to plan. I just find it hard to kind of take it away from them, I guess, and add that to their plate, as well as, servicing Port Opens and having to download this training, which sounds like a nightmare onto them with all the neighboring properties. And I think it's going to be hard to put this property out to real estate with the caveat attached to it that the new purchaser needs to give police 12 to 18 months to be there. If I was purchasing the building, I'd want to get started on it. That would be my thought process. I don't know who we're going to attract with having that type of a stipulation hooked to it, unless we're, substantially crediting them maybe for that on the back end. That's my comments on it.
Thank you, Councillor Darrell. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. So to kind of go with that, I think that's one of the advantages that we kind of have, and we hold the cards in our hand, that we can take a look at what maybe potentially does come to us, and we can make those decisions. I do think that maybe that 6 months isn't enough, and I realize it's not even in the recommended action, but it is something that we can hold off on for a period of time, the 12 months, and as the offers potentially come in, we can also put that in to add an extra 6 months if that is what we believe that is needed for our Port Hope Police to acquire a new training facility. So I'm comfortable with making a vote right now, but I would be requesting to maybe change the 6 months and add it up to more of a 12 months type thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adam. I'm going to get actually just a clarification from our new director. If in the best case scenario, if somebody were to purchase this property, just looking into a crystal ball, is it realistic that they would go through all the processes that would need to be gotten through in 6 months or even 12 months to be shovel ready or start doing some building? I think it's important for us to have a bit of a realistic lens on how long such processes typically take.
Thank you, and through you. It depends on what the purchaser would like to use the property for. Right now, the property is zoned as a rural institutional use and also designated similarly in our official plan. And it's my understanding that there is a limited number of permitted uses right now. So if they didn't want to pursue what is already permitted on the property from a zoning perspective, they would be looking into entering into a zoning bylaw amendment process, which typically, if all goes smoothly, could take anywhere between 3 to 6 months. If additional studies are required to support their application, that would prolong them being able to initiate that application. They would have to do the studies first. So in saying that, there's a lot of unpredictable timelines depending on what use is proposed for that property. But if they are into planning applications, you could consider at least 3 to 6 months for a rezoning once all of the required information for that rezoning would be submitted to the municipality. If they were looking at an official plan amendment as well, you could follow a similar course, but again, depending on the information requirements, it could add time to that process.
Okay, and then I will go to Councillor Clare and then Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, keeping us on our toes today. I just had a comment, with respect to some of the public comments and questions that have been asked about this property. I think it's important to remember that we still have the ability to control and I guess pursue a vision for what we want done with the property, even if we do move to sell it, right? We're going to be reviewing offers as expressed in number 4 in the proposed resolution. Those offers will come back to council, which means we do have the ability to review those offers from the lens of the direction we provided when we entered into the land inventory process around prioritizing economic development and housing, for example. So I think it's not to say that we're not we're wasting an opportunity or we're not using this to advance municipal priorities, but rather that we're looking for a partner out there in the private sector or the community sector to come to us with a vision for how we can use that property appropriately to advance our community's goals. So I think that's just a really important element of this. And I also just wanted to say that I think there's been some questions too around process of why this has come back a number of times on subsequent agendas. And I think this is part of healthy decision making in my view. You know, there's a reason we have we do sort of a second reading between committee of the whole and council. Sometimes new questions arise, and I really want to, I think, show appreciation to my fellow council members for allowing that time so that everybody at this table could feel comfortable, and to the to Chief Tim for coming and providing clarity around the police use of that site.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. So my opinion is of very much different than what's been expressed. The purchase of George Hamilton School was a deliberate investment by this municipality with a vision to serve as a revenue generating asset for the municipality. That was the vision. And I would ask everyone here around the council table and everywhere in our community, what is our vision? What are our long-term goals? If we make a decision such as this and sit on it and do nothing and then abandon it, where are we taking our future? We have OPG coming. And for lack of a better word, we will get steamrolled in the process of the urban sprawl coming this way unless we stick to our commitments and fulfill what we have agreed to do, whether that was a previous council or whether that is this council. And this is a perfect example of where we made that commitment, we communicated it to the public. Now we're abandoning it without giving it its full opportunity of what could be used at that property. And I've heard here all these wonderful ideas that someone is going to come and they're going to make it great and it's going to be wonderful. We don't know that. That would be wonderful. We have many properties in our municipality that have been sitting abandoned for decades. And schools is one. You drive up the road to Baileyborough, it was used as a grow up for many years, and now it's sitting empty, not saleable. So we could potentially, sorry to be the opposite side of this vision here, could have an abandoned property sitting up there in our community deteriorating for decades. We could be wrapped up in litigation where the community says, no, I don't want that. We don't know. We have to look at all the possibilities here. If we own it and we manage it and we fulfill our obligation, we are in control. At budget, we added $100,000 just to the budget for economic development, without anything attached to that, just $100,000. This is an economic development opportunity that we could put that $100,000 towards. This is what it was purchased for. So this is my position. We need to stick to our long-term planning goals.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I just, I think I need to clarify, we put $100,000 to the economic development plan that was developed by staff. It was not just money that was put into the thin air. It was absolutely dedicated towards fulfilling our economic development plan, which was very carefully scribed by staff with many priorities, and we needed to have money in order to actually implement that plan. In terms of revenue generation, I feel like I need to speak to this because I think going back to Councillor Clare's point, I think the whole point of opening it up to a possibility of a surplus and sale gives us an opportunity to see what are all the potential revenue generation opportunities that could come to the community through using that property in ways that we may not yet envision at this moment. And going back to Director Baxter's point, it was an additional $60 per household if we are going to continue to hold on to that property, not including the costs of carrying that property over time. And in terms of the vision of this council, we are entering into a strategic planning process, but we've had conversations about strategic priorities. And although we support the police and we support the safety of this community, I do not remember once training being a priority over economic development or over housing. Those were clearly set out in our priorities. So I think that the revenue generation is something that we are all very much interested in. Economic development is something that we're all very interested in. So I don't think it's a contrary vision at all. Councillor Adam.
Thank you. So I'm just asking the deputy mayor for a little bit of clarity because you were on council when it was purchased. So it was purchased for future economic development. Was it for the municipality to own it forever, or was it a future economic development, which could be somebody else purchasing it, surplusing it off and selling it to what that future economic development was?
I would have to ask Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. And unfortunately, the answer is that was not made clear. At the time of purchase, council was, listening to potential ideas and chose to move forward with the purchase, given the good sale price we could achieve through the board and having first right of purchase through the board's processes. But the RFP that eventually came to fruition, if memory serves, didn't specifically identify sort of that requirement or identify specifically that it was going to be a rent-based or a lease-based versus an offer to purchase. Usually RFPs are sort of broad enough that that's what you're calling for. You're calling for those proposals. Unfortunately, no realistic proposal came to fruition. The RFP was canceled. I would identify clearly that at that time, staff should have come back to council and identified there's a change of plans. We have to look at different options. That didn't happen. I can't speak to why that is, but I can tell you again that none of our current staff in our community development team or economic development team associated with this project are at the time are employed by the municipality. We've had that level of changeover from a director to a CIO to the economic development staff. I would make an argument that the purchase was worth it for the sale price, but that the plan was not so much of a plan, but a want at the time, a hope at the time.
Thank you, Director Gilmore. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up with the comment of it being a revenue source for the police. So first of all, I'm not saying it has to be just the police, but the police are using it. So there is an opportunity there. But we did see that the police could be spending potentially $90,000 for 45 days going elsewhere. That's $90,000 of levy going to somebody else for 45 days. That could potentially, there is a business model of just for that purpose alone, attracting other services here as well. I understand we don't have that capacity. Nobody at this point has that capacity, but that's why you make a plan and that's why you initiate the plan. So I'm not buying that there is no opportunity for training in and of itself.
Councillor Less.
The chief was quite clear on the fact that Peterborough will have their own, Durham will have their own. So we're now down to Cobourg and ourselves to potentially share the cost. It's not viable. And the other thing was when we bought this property and in the March 16, 2021 staff report, we were searching for community input to use this property or to develop ideas for this property in line with the strategic plan at the time. And here we are 4 years later and we have nothing. So there's no, like Mr. Bickle had a good point with the multi-union shop, but typically the union would own it, not the municipality. So I'd like to see something like that happen, but not us being the landlord on the property.
Thank you. I think we've had last comment, and then we can move on to a vote.
Thank you. I just thought I'd kind of remind us that even if we do decide to surplus, and I'm not saying we are, depends on how this vote goes, but even if we do decide, we can still say no to anything. We might not like anything that comes forth. We can easily just say, not yet. So just a reminder.
Thank you for that, Councillor Adam. Okay, so the recommended motion is on the agenda. It's listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Todd. Any further?
May I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Mink has requested a recorded vote with respect to item 10.6, Report CS 1524, regarding declare former George Hamilton Public School surplus and authorize the sale process. The recommended action is listed on the agenda. In accordance with our recorded vote procedure and our procedure bylaw, I will call out the name of each council member and you will respond with a yes or a no, and it will be alphabetical with the mayor going last. So we will start with Councillor Andrews.
Yes.
Councillor Attridge.
Yes.
Councillor Holloway Wadwani.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Mink.
No.
Councillor Pearson.
Yes.
Councillor Toms.
No.
Mayor Hankivsky.
Yes.
So that is a total of 5 yes votes and 2 no votes. The motion carries.
Thank you. At this point, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. Okay, everyone, we're going to reconvene. And we're going to go to item number 11, committee reports and recommendations, as soon as Deputy Mayor and Councillor Adam return. So 11.1, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of January 7th, 2025 regarding correspondence from Chief of Police Tim Farquharson, Port Hope Police Services regarding George Hamilton Public School property, 3200 County Road 10. Is there anything further anyone would like to add before we vote on this matter? Seeing none, the recommended motion is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconded? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. 11.2, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of January 7th, 2025 regarding report ES 0125, Ontario Regulation 45307, Water Financial Plan to support municipal drinking water license renewal. Is there anything further anyone would like to add before we vote on this important matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Clare. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 11.3, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of January 7th, 2025 regarding report PS 0125 mutual aid agreements between the Corporation of the Municipality of Port Hope and the Municipality of Clarington and the Township of Cavan Monaghan. Any further questions or comments on this? Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed. Moving on to 11.4, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting of January 7th, 2025 regarding presentation report CS 0125 regarding land inventory next steps. Is there anything further anybody would like to add? Councillor Les.
I think it was one of the finest reports that I've ever seen.
You're here. Absolute invaluable resource for us moving forward. So thank you again to all the staff that were involved in helping to facilitate that. The recommended action is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Darrell. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. We don't have any notice of motions this evening, so we're moving on to item number 13, bylaws consent agenda. Bylaws are passed by consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove a bylaw for separate consideration and discussion? Any further comments? Anybody want to pull anything? That's fine. Then can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Clare, seconded by Councillor Les. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. So we're moving on to item number 14, question period. It is now time for question period. Remember, the purpose of question period is to make inquiries of council related to matters of municipal business. Please note that this is not meant to be an avenue to ask questions to staff. Please direct your questions to council members. I also want to highlight that if your questions are operational in nature, they may be best answered by a member of the staff after the meeting. Contact information for our directors and our senior staff are available by the door. And if you have operational questions, please ensure that you do contact them. And we please ask, as we always do, to identify your name and ensure the purple button is pushed and the microphone is on before speaking. But before we get to that, I will ask fellow council members if there are any questions around the horseshoe. Seeing none, and the ongoing challenge of media questions, of which there are none. So then moving on to questions of the public. If you have any questions, we invite you to please step forward. Okay. No questions this evening. That brings us to item number 15, confirmatory bylaw. It is now time for the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides for formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. It is now time to adjourn the meeting. Our business is covered. It's 7:45 p.m. Thank you very much for everybody in attendance.